Alright, today we're having a look at Exiled from the Sky Part 2 by Aaron553. Alright, so here we are in Exiled from the Sky Part 2 by Aaron553, and I did skip over a bit of an intro cutscene here, and hopefully we'll have a little bit more gameplay just to go off the cuff. When I played Exiled in the Sky Part 1 this morning, and there was a lot of dialogue and like interspersed with movement and not quite as much quad gameplay, but hopefully we'll be like playing more in this one. As far as an environment, like this just looks amazing, and the first one did as well. I am extremely impressed already, and kind of like building into from what I experienced in the first one this morning, but there wasn't quite so much to do. Now, it does appear that we've got a little bit more going on. We should have, to start with, the right stick should move us in and out of lair. The R1 button should shoot lightning. Could the explanation go faster so we could play? And the L1 should make us turn on fire. But we'll see what's going on with that. I really want to show you stuff, doing stuff, but this was kind of what it was like when I played the first one, where it got these kind of big chunky explanations, and it's like, let me jump in, let me do the play. I'm okay, yes, the timer's gonna go off when we're in the middle of this. I know it. Yes, abilities, previous quest, we're good. I wanted I want to go. Let me play. I feel really, this is kind of like outside of what we usually do in the show, and it's kind of hard to like feature these kinds of levels because there's only so much. Now I'm pressing the R1. Why are we not getting electricity? Idles layout should match controls of your craft. Right joystick around with the whole. Oh, now we've got an aimer. We didn't have an aimer before. That's kind of cool. I like that. Okay. Oh, zippity zap. Zippity zap, that ain't no crap. Alright, so that doesn't move us in layer anymore, I guess. Now, L1 and L2 buttons. Oh, okay. Oh, fudge! Okay, you know what? I'm gonna do another 3 minutes of this. But I'm gonna do another 3 minutes after we, after we get through the explanations. So we're gonna stop here, we're gonna jump, you'll not even notice the cut, but we're gonna pause and then I'll be back in the gameplay in just a second. Alright, so we're back, and basically what they told us is L1 and L2 are moving in and out of layer. The R stick is, moving our targeting reticule, and okay, there we go. We gotta hit these crystals, and I think this is one of them. It's a little bit tricky, not gonna lie, and hopefully we're not gonna need to do this. Like, are you a crystal? Or are you a thing that I can interact with? Things moved here. Okay, I guess that other crystal there, like this, are you a thing? Should I kill you? Yes. Okay, good. I don't know if I'm supposed to flip upside down like that. I bet these are crystals that we got a zippity zap. So, okay, there we go. And was there another one? It's a little bit hard to tell because it's very foggy. This is very foggy. So, that's okay, there we go. Zip, I want to zip, zap. I want to shoot your crap. There we go. Oh, there's another one. The fogginess is real. This is so cool, though. Like, it's not I mean, it is LBP, obviously, because we're playing it in LBP3, but it's certainly not the experience that I'm used to having in LBP3. It's definitely like, if you're just bopping along and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna do some platformers today. I'm gonna do some light puzzling, maybe like an eye candy, and then you're doing that, and then you jump into this, and it's like, wowzers and or Bowsers, this was not what I was expecting. More in your journey, next for the glyphs. Yes. Oh, it's gonna be fire. Are we still in a tutorial? We're probably still in a tutorial. And that's... I'm not gonna do another 3 minutes after this. Like, what we get is what we get. L3 inwards to switch between glyphs. Oh, nifty. Oh, okay, okay, okay. I like that. Oh god, but... I mean... I'm so busy today too, like I can't be... This is not Aaron's fault, this is amazing, but like it is amazing, but also kind of, you know, life? I have life. I am an adult. I'm an adult human female, and I have things I gotta get going. What do you want me to burn? Oh, it looks so nice. Are we doing the thing? Oh, fudge! Okay, let me just get this thing lit. There we go. Okay, we're gonna have to go back to the hub and talk about this. I wish I could have shown you more of the gameplay and not just the tutorial, but it's a lot, so here we go. But we'll see you back in the hub really soon. See yas! And we're back, and Exiled from the Sky 2 by Aaron553, and sometimes with levels like these, I very keenly feel the limitations of our grading system, because on one hand, I do feel that there are definitely issues that affect gameplay and player experience that would bring it down to a yellow square, but this level is absolutely amazing. It is unbelievable just what Aaron553 has been able to accomplish in the LBP engine, for better or worse, and I want to give it a stronger score because it is just so good. But to get a little bit deeper into it, now this is the follow-up to 2019's Exiled from the Sky Part 1, and you may have played that and forgotten what was going on, or you may not have ever gotten a chance to play that, but in a really cool bit of inclusion and accessibility, Aaron has got you covered there, because right from the main menu, you can drop down and choose to jump directly into Exiled in the Sky 1, or you can watch a recap video that Aaron's put together. It's about 7 minutes long, and it takes you through the entire story of that like 26 or so minute long level. And that is, one, it's just really cool because, like, even for people like me, I played Exiled in the Sky 1 a couple of hours before I played Exiled in the Sky 2, the first attempt at least, and already, because my memory is really bad, and already some details were starting to escape me, so to have this opportunity to kind of sit down with it and to get that recap, I thought was really awesome. And I wish more games would do that. Like, not in LBP, because usually things are too separate and it's just community levels, but just games in general, if they had in the options menu when you start to like recap the story up till now, that would be kind of cool. I'd really appreciate that. So like, that was really neat off the start. Then when you jump into the level, or if you look at screenshots of the level, and I think the first thing that's gonna really hit you is just how absolutely gorgeous the environmental presentation and design is in this level. You can tell that it is in LBP because there's decoration bits in particular that you'll be able to pick out and be like, I know that one, I've used that one, I've seen that one. But the way that things have been combined, the way that the cameras have been set up, the lighting has been set up, and just the fact that you're not controlling a sack thing, like you've got your own little character, that UFO ship that you're flying, and it all gives the impression like that this wasn't done in LBP. If this shit showed up on the Steam store, and I would have been like, oh yeah, that was done in Unity, like this is its own little thing. It's so remarkably different from what you usually find in community levels. And that's not a slight against other community levels, but it's just to highlight what it is we have, what beast that we have here. It is extremely, extremely impressive. And even beyond just being kind of like, a lot of times with eye candy type levels, either if they're just presenting a scene or if it's just a heavily detailed level, and you get those environments that are really, really static, like they don't do anything, they don't have very much motion in them. There isn't like a ton of motion in the environments here because it is hard to animate decorations and make it look normal and natural, and Aaron is definitely going for a more naturalistic vibe in the environmental presentation here, but there is enough movement to make it feel like a place, and there's a lot of interactions with the level through gameplay where you've got like bridges that are lowering and doors that are opening, and you've got gears that are turning, and like it does feel like a living environment, and that is super, super cool. The music as well is just really great throughout the level. You've got a lot of tone pieces that are just like setting the mood of the sets that you're in that work really, really well. You've got a couple of bits of battling in the level when you're battling with little spaceships, and there's music. It's almost like Thomas Happ's music in Axiom Verge. It's like, it's really, really cool. They're really great tracks, and I appreciate that. There's a note on the on Aaron's creator page that they're working on an official soundtrack, and that is really, really cool, and I want to check that out when it's available to us. Like, so from like presentation and world, and it's all really, really great. But then you get into where it starts shading into, I don't want to say not great, but shading into areas where it's a little bit more challenging, I feel like, to engage with as a player. Now, one of the choices made in this level is to make the ship control very, very slowly. And I do think that's a deliberate choice, and I do think that is to good effect the first time that you play, because it really forces you to sit down with these environments and soak them in and get a feel for, you know, where you are and what you're doing and how those things interact. And that's like great the first time. It really, really is. But coming through to play it like a second, third, and fourth time to get pips and to actually complete the level, and that slowness does start to grate a little bit, especially when you're dealing with timed puzzle issues. There's two bits in the level where you're dealing with timed puzzles. One, there's a secondary bit after this this wheel puzzle we'll talk about a little bit later, where you've got to light a crystal and then go down and hit these two other crystals to make some sounds play, and that's going to open up a door. And like the timing is probably more generous than I felt like it was, but it definitely felt like I was gonna miss timing on that. And then you've also got later on, there's like a clock tower, and you've got to hit these crystals, then you got to go outside and you've got to get up to these bells, and then you've got to hit the bells when they light up. And it's like, it feels so slow in that area, and it felt like I wasn't going to be able to accomplish the goal, the task that I was set up for. And then you've got to go slowly back to reset the puzzle and do it all over again. And so that speed, I do feel, especially in second playthroughs or third playthroughs, I do feel that speed does kind of work against the play experience just a little bit. Now, also kind of tying into that, now that you've got these two different fire abilities for the ship, and I thought that was really, really cool. I like the fact that those fire abilities had different effects and interacted with the environments in different ways. I thought that was awesome. I like the way that they were incorporated into the level diegetically. We talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago when we were looking at Short and Sweet, and how to communicate to players that they have to do things that wouldn't necessarily like be in the environment. Like, you need to hit X to trigger some event, but the environment doesn't sustain that. And what Aaron has done here is set it up so that, like, millennia ago, this device crashed onto the planet, and it happened to look like, luckily for us, a PlayStation 4 controller. And so when you're in that tutorial section that we saw in the first impressions bit, and they're telling you, like, hit L1 to do this, hit L2 to do that, and it's reflected in the story that like this device that was found by the ancients was incorporated into their technology, and now in your ship, your control panel looks like that. And there's an L1 button on your control panel, so it kind of eases the player into the gameplay in a way that doesn't break the story, and I thought that was really, really cool. That's like a hard thing to pull off, so great to that, props to that. But the actual like control of the firing, controlling the reticule itself is fairly slow, like your ship is, and moving it in and out of the layers and understanding just where the reticule was and like what was going to be hit. So you see the full beam, like when you shoot the laser, you see the entire beam that's being shot out, but it's only really having a gameplay effect where the reticule happens to be at that moment. So getting it onto things that are not moving, like the crystals, not really that big a deal, and particularly with the laser, that the laser's got like a little bit of a flash, so you can kind of tell just where it is in the depth area of the screen in relationship to the crystals, so that you can kind of line it up there. But then getting that actually onto moving objects, when you are fighting the ships, you fight like the one ship early on, you fight 3 ships later on, and that is really, really tough because they are zipping and zooping all over the place, and the instinct is to treat the beam as though that's what's going to be doing damage to the ships. And so you find yourself like, that beam hit that ship, that beam definitely went through that ship, but the ship didn't take any damage, and it's because you've got to keep the reticule on top of the ship when you're doing the firing. So you're kind of like working against your instincts to engage with that bit of gameplay mechanics. And similar to that, that's with the laser that you're doing with the crystals and the ships, but you've also got this fire beam. And the fire beam interacts with objects slightly differently, where you've got braziers that you're trying to light on fire, but you need to have the beam on them for a short time before the fire itself actually ignites. But because it is really hard to tell where the reticule is in layer, it's hard to tell if it's actually in the hitbox of the brazier, and you're just, you know, waiting for the timer to trigger and the brazier is going to light up, or if you're actually in the wrong area. And so I had a lot of times where I thought I was lighting the brazier, and I'm just like waiting for it to go and waiting for it to go, and it's like, oh well, it hasn't gone yet, because there's no like real feedback in the in-between process when the timer is running. So, you know, having to shift around and fiddle around with the reticule to get it on top of it, and already the level is like this big chunky level, so losing that time there was a little bit frustrating, and it kind of comes into play later on with the boss fight. Now the boss fight is super cool looking. It's really, really well animated. It's just a beautiful object, like a beautiful piece of kit there. The actual boss fight itself isn't like super difficult, and partially because of something that has been done, I think, to help the players and keep the players engaged with the level, because the level is so very big and there's no real way to like save in the middle. So if there was death in the level, you would be taken out of it completely. You'd have to do it all from the start, and I think that Aaron rightly, at least I imagine, I haven't asked them, but I think that Aaron rightly believed that players probably, if they got booted out of the level through death, probably wouldn't come through and try to get the entire experience. So Aaron's made the death not be a factor here. You're basically immortal. You take enough damage to knock down your ship, but then you'll bounce back up after a little bit and be able to kind of continue on. But what that does is that it does sap a lot of the tension out of the final boss fight, and it incentivizes you engaging with the fight in a way that I think that was not really intended by the creator, because I was having to go back to the fire point. You've got to light these braziers, which is going to trigger a rock falling, hitting the boss on the head, and moving into the next stage of the fight. And because I had so much trouble figuring out like where I needed my reticule to be to light the braziers, once I figured how that worked, I didn't want to take my reticule out of that laser. But in between the brazier lighting phase, you've got rocks that are dropping on you, and you want to change your firing dealie. You want to change that to laser to shoot the rocks. And I was like, well, if I do that, I might screw up the fire section, and I might get my my targeter, my reticule out of layer where I need it to be, and the fire section is on a timer. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to tank the rocks. I'll let the rocks quote-unquote kill me and just completely ignore the hazard phase of the fight and just focus on getting those braziers lit. And I'm pretty sure that's not how that fight is intended to go, but I didn't want to add any extra time by having to miss the timing on the brazier section, so that's how I handled it. So those two kind of gameplay choices, those two gameplay elements coming together to produce an effect that I'm pretty sure wasn't intended by Aaron. So that was a bit of an issue there. The other big issue I found, and a lot of this is coming down, I think, to trying to do something so massive in scope. And this is actually as per a comment that Aaron's made on the actual level page itself, that this is not one level. This is 7 levels that have been lashed together with level links. You've got just a lot going on, and you've got a lot of strain on the engine, which produces a lot of loading. It produces a lot of like buffering in cutscenes and things like that, and that can cause the level to break. And the first 2 times that I actually tried to play through the level, it broke in the same section. You've got that wheel puzzle that I was telling you about before, and you need to line up by firing at crystals. You need to stop the rotating wheels. Stop that. Go back. You need to get the wheels to rotate, then fire on the crystals a second time to get them to stop, and have like the 3 symbols lit up at the same time, and that will trigger cutscene, which will kind of open up the next progress point. It's not like a really hard puzzle. There's a hint that's given in the puzzle, but I think that even without that hint, I think players would have been able to figure it out, because something is, symbols are lighting up, and you're like, oh, well, that's important. I want to do the thing that makes all of the symbols light up. Like, it's pretty clear gameplay logic. But when I played those first 2 times, and the level just stopped right there. It got hung on the cutscene. The wheels just kept on turning. They kept on spinning, and nothing happened. I couldn't back out of that. I couldn't tell like what was going on. I couldn't tell if something was wrong. I mean, obviously something was wrong, but I didn't have any way to fix it. And I was actually going to just not play anymore. I wanted to get a full archive of the level, and so I gave it one more shot this morning, and I was lucky, and it ended up, whatever went sideways yesterday didn't today, and great, thumbs up, that's wonderful. But I could definitely see a lot of players reacting like I did, getting that far in, and that break for me was at the 28-minute point. Getting that far into the level, and the slowness of getting to that level, because the pacing is so slow, the pacing is so deliberate, having it break and be like, yeah, I'm just not going to give it another try. And that's a shame, and I do encourage players to try at least once to get the entire full experience of this level, because the level is amazing, but we do have to, I think, accept that it's not unfair that players would be like, yeah, I'm not gonna. It's too much. And when you make big, chunky, elaborate, complex levels like these, I think you've got to accept that it's a gamble, and the level can break, and it's not your fault as a creator. Aaron, if you've watched this far, I hope that you have. I want you to know that I'm very specifically not calling you out on this. I think it's super awesome that you had this ambition and that you wanted to put this thing together. But the LBP3 engine is just not kind to these kinds of levels, and I do think that there's probably going to be a lot of players that won't see it through all the way to the end, because to have to replicate the progress that they've already made with the chance that the level's going to break again, they just might not. Now, to players that have given this a try, had the level break, what I would recommend is to completely, leave the game, shut down the game, and try it again in another play session, and it may work for you like it did for me. I can't guarantee that. It may, in fact, break in a different spot. There's no way to say that it's going to work out perfectly. I hope that it does, because this is great, but, there's that risk. If you don't want to risk your time like that, if you've got a very tight schedule like I do, and you don't really have like a couple of hours to noodle around with this kind of thing, that's understandable. That's just how life goes. I've said so much about this level, and I feel like I could say so much more, because it is really, really cool. One last thing I want to point out specifically about the level before we go. There is a credit scroll at the end of the level, thanks that Aaron is giving out to folks that have helped them, and we don't know what each of these individual folks are being credited for, but even still, I think that is super cool. A lot of these big, massive projects, they're not the work of just one creator. There's a lot of folks that have given their time and given their effort, maybe through music or maybe through playtesting or helping buff up some of the decoration and the design. And to give a shout out to those folks who have helped out, I think is really, really cool on Aaron's part as a creator. And I think that's something that we should do if we have help, to say who's helped us and to give them some thanks. But I think I've probably said enough. I've probably said too much. I've probably talked too much. I'm sorry. I had a lot to say. This level is cool. If you take away nothing else from this review, this is an experience. It's a worthwhile experience to have. It's something that you're just not going to run into very often in LBP 3. And I definitely think that you should give it a shot. But that pretty much does it for us here at Disco About. So for me, Disco, here in Tokyo, to all of you out there, wherever you may happen to be, thank you, arigato, sayonara, see you, and ciao.